Welcome back to the Backseat Startup Podcast, where we give unsolicited advice to strangers on the internet.
Today, I'm joined by Robin Singhvi, the founder of SmartCue, a game-changing platform for closing deals faster with killer product demos. Robin has worked at multiple early-stage startups as part of their sales teams, but also has a computer science degree, one of those rare breed of tech folks that moved over to the dark side. Robin, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Luke.
So you know the drill. We will open Reddit. We'll find a question posed by a founder, and we'll break it down. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. If you see any that jump out at you, please let me know.
I will.
This is a cautionary tale from a
I
founder.
know. Yes.
Do you ever feel that you started too early?
Yeah, still do to this day.
Oh, do you want to double click in here and see what this is all about?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Yeah,
We can keep scrolling. It's up to you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just trying to think about it. I was like, I mean, it's yeah.
Somebody had a red flag pitch into a VC.
Yeah, we can maybe double click on that because
All right.
I'm in the process of raising a seed round, and I had a lot of learnings when I raised my pre-seed. So yeah.
Great. So not only might you have good advice,
But I might learn something.
You might learn something from this post.
Great.
Okay, so I will give it a read just for our listeners. Bear with me, it's a little long. So, okay, the title is this. The title is Pitch to Someone in VC for the First Time and Wondering if This Was a Red Flag. I'm relatively young, mid-20s, very inexperienced, and don't know if I can properly evaluate this situation. I know a venture capitalist who's sort of a mentor and sort of a friend. We met several years ago when I was doing unrelated work as a student, but I only recently shared with him my entrepreneurial interests. We had a meeting the other day where I presented one of my ideas using a pitch deck, and it seemed like it was going well until it didn't anymore. He said he really liked the pitch, likes the idea, thinks it's unique and worth pursuing, said the presentation was kind of rambly but otherwise clear, etc. The past few times we've spoken, he's been telling me about his new venture fund. So I guess I had this idea in the back of my mind that if all went well, maybe he'd be willing to introduce me to someone in his network who could potentially provide some seed funding. When push came to shove, I asked him for advice on how to move forward. He told me he would be willing to refer me to an overseas app building service one of his friends owns, who could build a platform for me for a reduced fee. Because I'm pretty decent at UI UX and already have an interactive Figma prototype for my project, he said I could get it done for only 30 to 40K. When I sheepishly asked him how I could go about raising the money, all he told me was to ask family and friends. This meeting has left me with a lot of conflicted feelings. I feel let down, but I have no idea whether it's wrong or inappropriate for me to feel let down. I feel almost vaguely embarrassed for feeling let down, like this is a sign my expectations are seriously off base and I need a reality check. How would you interpret this situation if you were in my shoes? Honestly, if the choice is between finding some way to raise tens of thousands of dollars through family and friends versus trying to find a technical co-founder, I'd rather do the latter. I previously wrote off that possibility because I figured that, one, even with my UI UX experience, because I'm an amateur, most technical people will still view me as one of those annoying idea schmucks. And two, even if they didn't view me as a schmuck, the fact that I have zero track record in business would be an automatic disqualifier for most people anyways. If I were to give this pathway a shot, I'd probably try and utilize female-focused and LGBT-focused startup groups in my area in the hopes that this would make something very intimidating a little more approachable. Please help me set my head straight.
Oh my God, such a great story and such a great question. I think, and I think very relatable, right? So I think firstly, I don't think there's any reason for him to feel let down, right? With most VCs, I think, given how prevalent VC is, I'm sure everyone in our network knows or is connected to a bunch of VCs, and they'll be more than happy to talk to you anytime you want. But when it comes to giving you money, you're like, oh my God, we had these great conversations, but why are they not giving me money? And I mean, it's just business, right? They're trying to hedge their bets. As VCs, they are under a lot of pressure to give their LPs 100x returns. And you might be a great person, you might even have a great idea, but perhaps, either the risk is too high for them, perhaps you're too early, whatever the reason is. So I think it's absolutely fine that he didn't offer up the money. The fact that he asked you to go to friends and family, and going to friends and family to raise your first sort of round is very common, right? It's not
Mhm.
uncommon. But like reading what he has to say, like he has a Figma prototype, right? And I think given the way things seem to work nowadays, like I would suggest like you're good at UI UX, build it out a little bit more just in Figma. Don't even go to the agency to build it out for 40K. Build it out, create a cool landing page, create a wait list, maybe even take some money,
Mhm.
right? To get ahead in the line, get some traction. Like even if you have traction in terms of like an X number of people on the wait list, X number of people have paid, and definitely build in public, right? Drum up interest on Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit, wherever you are. And who knows, like before you know it, you might actually be able to go back to your VC friend and be like, hey, now I need the money because I already have this traction, right? So whether it's him or when you're building in public, I'm sure people will just reach out to you and be like, hey, you know what? I think you're doing something cool. Let me help you. Which is what happened to me, right? So I think he's on the right path. Like I also see that he's already thinking about uh, getting a technical founder on board, thinking of channels and avenues to pursue to find perhaps his co-founders or even some prospective customers. So I mean, it's such a great position to be in, to be honest, right? I mean, you're early 20s, you're great at Figma. Like, I mean, so I sold my first deal on a Figma prototype. When I had no idea that whether I'd even be able to build the product. So nothing wrong, I think, in doing what he's doing. Uh, take the positive that the VC friend gave him. That hey, it's a great idea, great pitch, has a lot of legs. Just validate that, right? And I definitely do not pay someone to build anything until you've got some initial validation and traction. It'll just take maybe 3 to 4 months, and I think he should be good to go one way or the other. You'll know, right?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that the VC went straight to go overseas to build it. And maybe there's a lot of like validation going on in the background that just isn't contained, in
Possible.
this Reddit post. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're good at Figma, that's step
Oh my
one.
God.
And also, I really appreciate good writing, and this poster is a really good writer and a really good
He
storyteller.
is.
So just
Yes.
combine those skills, right? Get your Figma prototype in front of as many people as you can, and tell a compelling story. And that's the step one before you certainly spend $30,000 to $40,000 getting the
Absolutely. Absolutely.
prototype
Yes.
built.
Yes.
So this poster's disappointment in conversations with the VC are kind of on two dimensions, right? Like I think they really
Mm-hmm.
wanted the investor to invest himself, but
Mm-hmm.
also refer them to somebody else in their network. And I
Yeah.
think VCs are really stingy with that. And I think there's a pretty good justification for that, right? Like
I think so. Yeah.
VC's credibility is their currency. And if you start sending bad deals to many of your VC connections, like you're going to get
Yes.
left out of future deals. And that is nothing that should not be seen as any sort of reflection on this particular idea or
Yeah.
founder or whatever. It's just, I think that's just the way it is. I think they're really reluctant to pass along referrals. And so I don't think they should be concerned about that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's,
One other thing I was thinking about, Luke, is that if this person is actually gonna go and eventually raise VC money, they need to really develop a thick skin, right?
Mhm.
Because you're going to get a lot of no's, right? No matter how great your product is. And you can't let that color your impression or your perception or your vision of your product, right? I mean, you should always try and temper your expectations and take the inputs that you're getting, but uh, you shouldn't let VCs and their advice make you decide whether your product or your idea is good or not, right? Only you know that, and you really can, as a startup founder, you're the only one that can make or break what you're building, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, no's are a big part of of the startup journey, right? From VCs, from customers, from potential employees. The number of times that's happened where I'm like, oh my God, I would really love to have this guy join me, but they just don't. There's someone bigger, better out there.
Yeah, and there's so many factors that founders don't know what's going on in the background inside these funds. Like this founder seems very confident and stuff. So I'm guessing the VC is like, in their industry, same check size, stuff like that, stuff that would be basic kind of parameters. But it's more than that, right? Like, let's say you're working on a generative AI platform and the VC has 3 in their portfolio. Like,
Right.
you don't know what they're looking for at any given time, even
Yeah.
if you happen to match their traditional stage, sector, vertical, and
Correct.
so forth. So,
Yeah.
like you said, there was all those jokes about some VCs that are like spray and pray models where they just, throw money at as many different startups and hope some take
Yes.
off. Well, that's literally what it is when you're pitching, right? Like, you have
Yeah.
to cast a really wide net because you're going to get a
Yes.
ton of no's, and you don't know where the yeses are going to come from, and ones that you think are more likely to be yeses can be no's. So,
Yeah.
they happen to, get a no on their first at bat, which is really, really common.
Yes.
And this is not something that should deter them from pursuing, raising money, and moving forward. And also, I would stay away from the advice of spending 30 to 40K right now.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe he's just not the right investor for you. Because like, I mean, most investors I've met, they're like, hey, you know what? Like, do everything as lean as you can, for as cheap as you can. And I mean, if I told them that I had a Figma prototype, they'd be like, you don't need to build anything. Get people to pay, and only once people pay, start building. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a good thing that happened to this guy.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, Figma is more than a lot of people have. Some
Oh
people
my
just
God,
start with,
yes.
a
Back of a
PDF
napkin.
or
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the discussion over should you raise money or should you bring on a co-founder? Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. One, right? I think, and I'm a solo founder, so I wouldn't say that you have to have a co-founder, but I also, given he's early on, hasn't had a lot of experience, it's always good to have two minds rather than one, a counterpoint, someone to balance you out, someone with a deferring point of view, right? Always helps when you're trying to build something, and has its pros and cons, obviously, right? And raising money, I think, is just it's a different kind of validation, right? One is you're selling the idea and a pitch to someone to come on board and go on the journey with you as a co-founder, and the other is getting people to put their money where their mouth is, right? You'll meet a lot of people, like all your friends, all your families, even your professional colleagues will tell you that, oh my God, that's a great idea, you should do it. And when you're like, okay, I'm doing it, will you put money into it? That's when whether your idea really has legs, or at least has legs enough for those sets of individuals to invest in you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a founder on the podcast a little bit ago that talked about brand blindness. Like, you need to be really careful
Yeah.
who you share your first ideas with, because if you're only pitching it to people who like you,
Yes.
they're going to give you a very different response than if you're reaching out to people you are not that connected with. I mean, you should get it in the hands of potential users, potential buyers of the product, rather than people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and
Well,
I was just thinking, right, Luke, sorry to cut you off, but I was thinking, he's thinking of going to these startup groups in his area, perhaps I think to find a co-founder, I think. But if he were to try and like validate his idea, I mean, like, now is literally like a golden time where you don't have to, like, rack your brains too hard to find potential users. Like, Reddit is a great place. Like find a Reddit thread that is close to what you're trying to build, put it out there, get people to give you feedback. And these people will be, very honest, very brutal, sometimes mean, but you'll get real unbiased feedback, right? Twitter is a great place to do that. Product Hunt has a great feature, the community feature where you can ask. I mean, I've gotten some really great feedback. So yeah, I mean, it's just such a great time to start. And I honestly wish that I knew more of Figma than I did when I started out. Because if I did, oh my God, like I would have been selling on Figma for at least 6 months or until I sold 100K worth before I even started building anything. But yeah.
Yeah. Chin up user u/Zanbugs.
Yes.
Just stay the course. The fundraising process is long and brutal, and like you said, you have to develop a thick skin. But no, bottom line, don't take any of this as being a direct reflection of your idea or your ability to raise capital or your success as a founder with your company. So you're welcome for the unsolicited advice. Where can listeners connect with you?
Well, everywhere on social, right? So I'm active on Twitter and LinkedIn. My handle is my first name, last name, so Robin Singhvi. I have a newsletter called smartcue.substack.com. On our website, we have not a blog, but a place where I sort of put down my thoughts. So it's called Founders Corner, but it is on getsmartcue.com/blog. So you can find me on all of those places. We have a small but growing YouTube channel as well. So again, at GetSmartCue on YouTube. Those are the places you can find me, and from all of those places you can reach me direct. I try to be very active in responding to people as much as I can, as being a solo founder. But yeah, I mean, I live for and build for the community. So I definitely spend a lot of time engaging with the community.
Fantastic. Check out Robin on all of those platforms. And if you are in need of a killer demo, head over to SmartCue. Robin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Luke. This was great.
The Backseat Startup Podcast is brought to you by Startup Founder Daily, a media company focused on early stage companies. To learn more or apply to be featured for free, head over to startupfounderdaily.com. You can find the link in the description below.